Hello, everybody. Welcome to the pre-show. It's me and Stacey tonight. Stacey, you're muted. We're just waiting for our guest to connect. He's having a little bit of trouble authenticating on StreamYard, so I had to call him there, and hopefully he's able to figure it out. So I seem to walk him through. He just has to remember his password. So while we wait for him, this pre-show might be just a little bit longer, and. But we'll go from there. Stacey, how you doing?
Doing pretty good. Pretty good over here. It's a cold day.
Cold day. Yeah, I haven't shoveled anything yet. We're still snowed in.
Oh.
It was a very eventful day for me. I spent a lot of time on social media, more time than I normally do, but I had planned for it, and it was a good day of conversing with people. I recently have disturbed a bee's nest, and I'm just waiting for all the bees to go back to the nest and then go back to normal. So tonight's theme, I guess, for conversation is healing, psychic, and what was the other one? Counseling, right? Yeah, so any thoughts on that?
I have a lot of thoughts. I hope I won't be doing too many super chats today. We'll see what kind of position our guest takes. But I always have an interest in anyone who says, they're channeling, any being. And I just like to learn more about how they perceive it and how their psychic senses work. I think that's always interesting for me anyways. They have a interesting novel out too.
He does, yeah, a book, right? The Perfect Predator, I think I have here.
Yeah, it seems like it's a fiction, kind of mystery thriller, which that sounds fun.
I actually maybe I can pull it up. Let's talk about him until he gets here. He's still having trouble, so I don't know what's going on there, but so for those of you guys tuning in, we're just waiting for a guest to figure out his stuff here. But I guess we can talk about him. What do we see here? So I think he has a book on Amazon, right? Is it Amazon?
Yeah, The Perfect Predator: A Scientist's Race to Save Her Husband from a Deadly Superbug, a memoir.
Milne. And hey Lisa, hey Wes, good to see you. Hey Dave, good to see you too. You guys got any questions in general, just throw them in there. Let's have a conversation. We'll make use of the time until we can figure our guest out here. So here's his YouTube channel.
Mm-hmm.
Secret behind. So he's got a podcast, playlists, community. So his we'll just read that here. So My Side of the Crystal Ball is a podcast hosted by Canadian psychic Robert and Lindsy Milne. The goal of starting the show is to combine old wisdom with new perspectives. We hope to create a space where people can let their curiosity run wild while giving an opportunity to connect to like-minded people. The format of the podcast will give a chance for Robert to teach with What Would Robert Say segment, and then an opportunity to learn with the Experts Chair segment. So yeah, there's that.
Yeah, I wonder if they do light language, like that's kind of giving off vibes like that. Light language healing sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard of that?
Light healing or light language healing?
Yeah,
I have. I have not experienced it.
me either.
I'm just trying to see there. So we'll just keep that up and talk. So okay, well, I don't know what else what to talk about. So let's talk about, I guess, crystal balls in general. What do you think about crystal balls?
Yeah, it's a divination tool some people can use. Like I think you enter into a trance-like state in order to access any like it was or who has it now. But I've never used one or tried one myself.
Priscilla has a crystal ball. She has a couple of them. I've never actually seen her like use them other than like the channel energy from the crystal itself. But like, can you see in them when you look through them? What do you think?
I think some people can. I think you could do the same with water, and it's there's very similar things all over the place. It's just really
Milne? Oh, I can't. I'll bring you in here. You can correct me in a minute. All right. Robert is recognized across the continent as one of the most insightful psychic intuitive counselors of his time. He has traveled the world giving insight with his psychic intuitive sessions to tens of thousands of people. Robert was reading tea leaves before he could English. The Toronto native had humble beginnings as the 19-year-old hippie psychic working at a tea house. But he has since grown to be recognized across the continent as one of the most insightful psychic intuitive counselors of his time. He has been fascinated by, we will be fascinated by his work with a coma patient and how he was able to help cure a very rare disease as featured in the book The Perfect Predator. So hello, Robert. Put on your tinfoil hat. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. I feel I can read you can read just a little bit better than me.
Sorry about that.
So well, I had a panic attack. I just could not log on, but now we have. Thank you.
That's okay. We're here now. Yes. So did I pronounce your name right? If I didn't, I apologize.
The very first one, Robert Lindsy Milne, but is the way it's said.
Okay, perfect.
Yes, thank you.
Normally we go over that before the show starts, but unfortunately we didn't have that today. So we had to wing it.
Yeah.
All right. So we usually kick the show off with an icebreaker from Tim the Demon Guy Morrison.
Okay.
And what he does is he kind of sets the tone. And what did he give me today? He sent it to me via email today. Where is it? There it is. So his question is, what would you rather? Would you rather know the date of your death or your cause of death?
Oh, for me personally, are you asking me that personally?
Well, yeah, that's the icebreaker.
Oh, I'd rather know when rather than how.
Mm-hmm.
And if I knew when, I would pretty much be able to figure out how. So
yeah, that's true. That's very
when
true.
it's going to happen is for me.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I say when for me as well, and then figure out how, and then figure out how to prevent that.
I have an icebreaker for you. If
Okay.
you were given $10 million
Okay.
and you get to retire for the rest of your life, or you can take all the knowledge, all the information, all your awareness back and start off again at 10 years old, which one would you take?
I would take it. I would start fresh at 10 years old.
Yep, but you would have everything that you already know now.
Oh,
everything, like
everything
all
I already
your knowledge,
know.
everything. But
yeah,
but you go back to age 10 and start your life there.
That's a tough question.
Oh, I'd go back. I'd
go back for sure. And then and then destiny would take its place.
Right. Because if I got the $10 million, I'd spend the rest of the time drunk and stoned or something. So I'd rather do it more, right? So that's what
well, we're trying to raise money for a good cause, so the $10 million could help these experiencers. So it's kind of, we use either way. But if I went back,
what could you think with the knowledge that you have now starting off? What do you think you could do? Wow.
Yeah. But then again, you got to look into how. Well, I would have to imagine. Am I also going back in time to like when I was 10 in that time frame?
Right now right
or
now
I'm 10
today.
10 today. Yeah. So then I would then I have to imagine what the world's going to look like 25 years from now.
Except that you've got all this knowledge that would prepare you. You would be exactly like you are now, only 10 years old, starting out. And you would be starting from there at 10.
Yeah.
And have the next.
But then I'd have parents that wouldn't allow me to do anything until I was 18. So I'd be caught on this knowledge for 8 years.
Go for the 10 million then.
I don't know. That's okay. All right. No, that's good. I've never been asked an icebreaker on my show, so I like that. I appreciate that. Thank you.
I needed time to calm down.
That's okay.
I've been on shows before,
Yeah. Okay. No, it's all good. It's all good. So this is about you. So let's talk about. So where do you want to start? You want to maybe walk me through your life about how you got here?
Yes. Well, on January 17th, it just passed, I celebrated 57 years of being a professional psychic. And I began my career, I was 15 and a half years old. I was living on the streets in downtown Toronto, and I was surviving by my instincts and intuitions. And I knew I was psychic. I didn't have a name for it, but I knew, and I'd been doing these things for a long time. And I heard that if you worked at the Cozy Tea Room in Toronto, now we're talking about 1965, so that was a long time ago. If you worked at the Cozy Tea Room in Toronto doing tea leaf and card readings, which I could never do and have never done. If you did tea leaf and card readings, you worked in the afternoon, you'd get a sandwich, cup of tea, and cookies, and also you'd get paid. And if you worked in the evening, you got a hot dinner and cookies and tea, and you got paid. And on that day, in January, I applied, and the way I got the job was I did a psychic reading for the owner of the tea room. And she hired me that day, and I started working at the tea room, performing psychic readings, and that's how I started. And that day, I got paid at the end of the night, had a hot dinner, and that night I had a place to sleep, and the next day I had a job. And I worked at the Cozy Tea Room till I was about 21, 22 years old. And I worked 5, 6, sometimes 7 days a week. And some days I would see 40 people, some days I'd see 10, but it was that consistency over that time period that, besides learning my skills and developing my skills, surviving on the street, then gave me the opportunity to hone those skills and direct them and control them. And that's where it started.
Okay. That's amazing.
So, yeah.
So how did you know that you were psychic? Like, so that's you kind of skipped the part.
Oh yeah,
how you knew
how did
that.
I know that? Right.
So you were able to get the job. Like, what's behind the scenes there?
So from the time I was a child, like I suppose I was a child when I was on the street, but when from the time of like 5 years old, I was saying things that would get me into trouble, and I never understood. So one example that I talk about often is I had just come home from lunch from school, so I was in either grade 1 or kindergarten, one of the two, and I said to my mother about that yesterday, that I got hit, and they talked about it. So I knew something was going on, and I used to, say things on, Uncle Harold. I didn't have a Uncle Harold, but this did happen. Uncle Harold, that wasn't Aunt Sally. Who was that woman? Well, that one got me hit for sure. So I would say things to people, and then I would get into trouble, and I didn't understand. And then like a day or two later, what I had said was correct. But I was 9, so I'm a Torontonian, born in Toronto, and except for when I was touring in my work, I've lived just mostly always here. And when I was 9, my father took me to an NHL Stanley Cup hockey game, and it was with Boston and Toronto, and semifinals. And the game went into overtime. The score was tied 1-1. The series was tied 1-1, and the game goes into overtime. And when the teams come on the ice for the first overtime period, I knew number 17 with Toronto Maple Leafs was going to score. The game hadn't even started. The players were just kind of stretching a little bit, and I knew he was going to score. Gary Eman. It was so strong. I don't like your cat. It was so strong that it seemed like it had already happened, and I was getting all excited. But the game hadn't started. Anyway, the referee blows the whistle. Lights gets turned down. This is in Maple Leaf Gardens, and there's like 18,000 people waiting for the game to start. The whole building's quiet. The lights are down, and they're just about to drop the puck. And I couldn't hold my feelings in anymore. In this silent building, I jumped up and started screaming and cheering for Gary Eman because he scored the overtime goal. Except the game hadn't started and he wasn't even on the ice. And everybody in the building turned and looked at me and my father. And he just said, "Sit down." And I did. And the game started. And I was confused as to what had gone on. Anyway, a couple of minutes later, Eman jumps over the boards. I think a guy named Red Kelly did it, passed the puck to Eman. He tips it in the net, and the entire building went crazy. And I remember sitting down watching while everybody was going crazy. I was watching everybody going crazy, and I was thinking, people think differently than me. I see things differently. And that's when I knew why I'd been getting into all kinds of trouble. And that's when I knew what I was going to do in my life. I didn't know how to describe it or what to call it, but I knew that's what I would be doing. So, and I have, so I was 9 when that happened.
9 when that happened. So you realized that, you had some ability, some gift of some sort.
Absolutely. I just knew I was different. Mm-hmm. And now remember, we're talking about a 9-year-old, and I'm remembering that story as a 9-year-old, and I'm 72 now. So it wasn't quite as sophisticated as I'm describing it this evening.
So how do you imagine it? Like, 'cause 5 years old is when you remember your earliest time. So do you think you always had it at 5? Like, were you born with it, or did something happen?
I'm not sure if anything happened other than I came from a very physically abusive and is psychic. Being psychic is a natural, normal phenomenon that mammals have. Actually, most living beings have a sense of an awareness, but we mammals are intuitive, and we humans have an instinct about us that caused us to get out of the, to survive and get past the caveman era. Have you ever been somewhere and you're just sitting around minding your own business, maybe having a coffee and reading the newspaper, and you look up and there's somebody looking at you, and not necessarily staring you down or, but just looking at you, and then you look up and you see them, or you haven't talked to a friend in a bunch of years, and then all of a sudden you start thinking about the person, and then you hear from them, or things like that. Now, almost everybody can do that.
I can relate to like driving, and then all of a sudden I just feel something, I turn and look, and then there's like someone in another vehicle looking at me, and then they look away.
Absolutely.
Like that's happened so many times.
Absolutely.
I was just like it's just so weird that I felt the eyes, and then
absolutely. So being psychic, and you just even look at the root, the root of the word. Psychic comes from psyche, the Greek root psyche, which means mind, soul, or self. If you have a mind, you have a soul, and you have a self, and you use it, you're psychic. And that's basically what it takes to be psychic. There are certain groups where their brain chemistry and how their brain formed, they may not be able to understand behavior or emotions, or some people on the autism scale may not be able to use skills like that or have skills like that, but almost every one of us has. And it's for our protection. And we also have a tendency to remember our worst case scenarios too.
I understand that. So I'm just looking here. I made some questions. I was just thinking, in terms of, like, are you religious at all? Like, how does this apply to? Were you brought up in any faith at all?
No. The family that I was brought up in wasn't particularly religious or spiritual. Okay. So now there's a difference between being spiritual and there's a difference between being religious.
Okay.
And I think that it's also worthwhile to, when you think about being spiritual, we always assume, well, not always, but most of the time when someone says, "Oh, I'm a spiritual person," or "this being is a spiritual person," what we're saying is, this is a good person. This person's good. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that. So being spiritual doesn't necessarily mean being good. It's we think that is, but in our universe, for every action, there is an equal and opposite reaction. In our universe, there must be positive, there must be negative. It cannot exist if it isn't there. So what we are is positive and negative. So there are positive energies or spirits, spirituality, and then there are negative spirits or spiritual people. So if you think of Anton LaVey, Anton LaVey wrote the book, I believe it was called The Satanic Bible. He wrote that. And he also started, I don't walk around saying I'm a spiritual person or I'm this. What I just simply do is be as nice and good, as kind as I can be.
Mm-hmm. So okay. So you never really identified, you weren't programmed in a certain way, but you always felt this, you naturally felt this.
That's right.
This way, because there is in the Bible and many other faith and religions, psychic abilities and spiritualism and all that, as we mentioned too. But you gravitated towards that naturally. So how do you think it's possible for someone what makes you different? Were you were born that way, but how come others aren't? What made you so in tuned?
Well, that's good. It's survival. Mm-hmm. It was survival. So I learned to survive by my instincts, And then at around 14, the first time after a beating or whatever, I ran away from home, and I spent from November of that year to April, and I the first time I lived in the streets, surviving that way, and then the police caught me and brought me home, and then.
So was there any trauma like that before the age of 5? Like is that just when you remembered, or like how? I'm sorry to hear all that.
I have remembrances of being violated at a really young age.
Okay.
And so I've spent my whole life doing therapy since I was about 16 or 17 up until now. Actually, I just had a therapy session this afternoon, and my therapist said, "Robert, you graduate. You're cured." So really, truly, that's what happened this afternoon. So, the question was what again? See if you can work quite regularly. Then I came back to, because of the book that you mentioned about helping Stephanie find a cure for the superbug. So since I've come back and have been interacting with other psychics, the younger ones and the modern ones, I realize that most of us that do this have had really severe trauma.
Yeah,
part of the job.
I'm finding that too in our experience or cases too. When people do report, we start with their baseline experience, but then when we get into it and we dig and we try to learn, that seems to be common. But I did often speculate if that affected the brain in some way, that this may be a defense mechanism. And then you mentioned that it's biological and it's a natural behavior of humans. And then now here I'm thinking, okay, then it is a defensive mechanism.
It is. It is, and our unconscious mind and the way it works, it is there set up for our survival. And if we as humans, as a species, didn't have that instinct, we never would have evolved from the caves. But most mammals are like that. Most mammals have that instinct. Dogs, cats, horses. This is really, I don't know how this happened. Dogs, cats, horses, and dolphins have a really close connection with humans, and we can unconsciously communicate with those animals, or those animals can bond with us quite easily. But just about every mammal has this instinct.
Yeah, I can relate it with that. Like you can communicate with animals and know exactly, have that feeling that you know what they mean, and you're communicating with them, but you're not talking the same language. Like,
Ryan, in us as human beings, we have 3 ways that we communicate. And the 3 ways that we as human beings communicate are in this order: unconscious nonverbal communication, called body language; tone of voice, so the way we say it; and the words that we use. So those 3. Now, unconscious nonverbal communication, body language, is about 75% of what and how we express ourselves. But 75% is unconscious and nonverbal, our body language. 20% of our communication, the way we communicate, is how we say the words, like, "You're a really nice person." Well, wait a minute. No, that didn't sound like you believed it, right?
Yeah.
Because, so, or "I love you a lot." Well, maybe not. So 20% is our tone of voice, and 5%.
That's quite fitting. The day the recent events that I've been going through as well. I've been talking to people on on social, and I totally understand the 5% and the protection behind the keyboard and borders and things like that too. And if we were just face to face,
you wouldn't have made the mistake, most likely.
Yeah, no, I get that. I totally get
that. That's how come. So that's just all part of us as mammals and how we communicate.
So so with your understanding of the psychic ability, you're suggesting that it's a normal human
Absolutely.
behavior. So
Absolutely.
would there
I'm not
be
suggesting that at all, Ryan. I'm saying it is.
okay?
And
Is it at all possible in your mind to have any divine or outside influence, like
of course.
a
Oh,
spiritual
yeah.
being
Well,
or
okay.
thing?
So I didn't say there's no other influence.
Okay.
I just said that being intuitive or being psychic isn't necessarily spiritual.
Mm-hmm.
People that lean towards being spiritual often can do this kind of work, but it's not obligatory. You don't have to be spiritual. You don't have to meditate. It's a natural phenomenon. So when I realized that this was going to be my career, and well, I knew it was going to be my career when I started working at the Cozy Tea Room. I was a cocky little kid. I remember telling everybody the day that I started that they would say, I said, one day, you'll be telling people this is where I started. I was a really cocky kid. It's probably the reason I survived. But after 4 years or 5 years of doing readings, and it was, and I was practicing as well. If I wasn't going to work doing readings, I was practicing doing readings. Mm-hmm. And around 21 or 22, when I left the tea room and didn't want to do that anymore, I'd been thinking about what kind of a commitment could I make, and my psychic ability. It was, I just wasn't using it or couldn't, or I got burned out, tired, drained, whatever. And I would walk around thinking, how do these people survive without that awareness? Like, how do they make it? That's been my, my sense when I haven't really been tuned in. So this has been not just making money to have a nice car. This has been what I do for my life purpose. Mm-hmm. And at 72, as I said, I'm still doing 400-500 readings a year, even when I was semi-retired.
So how does a reading work?
Well, for me, I can't speak for anyone else. I don't use a medium per se, like I don't use cards or palm or crystal ball. When somebody comes to me for a reading, you sit down in a pretty nice chair, or we do it on YouTube or on Zoom these days. But when we're open, like when we can visit people and stuff, from my office here, when someone comes in, readings are an hour long. I'm really generous with my time, especially because I'm getting older. And in my career, doing readings, appearing on radio and TV shows around the world, it's calculated that I've done, over my 57 years, I've done more than 100,000 psychic connections. Not, our psychic readings, but giving guidance on the phone, on shows, readings the way that I have all my life, is more than 100,000 psychic connections. And so I'm trying to think of what I'm thinking, why I was saying that. So I decided this was a life commitment, and I've been dedicated, and I'll do this for the rest of my life until I die, or I lose my, I won't be able to speak, or I'll be sent out or something, and then I'll stop. But I'll do this forever. I have done it forever.
Well, you've helped a lot of people understand, get clarity. What kind of reading?
Oh, yeah.
Right. What is a reading? What are you reading? So, in a sense.
Well, what happens then is my readings are a monologue rather than a dialogue. In fact, I ask people to please not interrupt me. And in my readings, they're around an hour long, and I have a way I start. I start off, and I give the date, my client's name, and then I'll say, psychic reading by Robert Lindsay Milne in Toronto. And then I just simply say, here we are today in February 2022. What I'm about to tell you is, and then I just do a monologue for at least an hour, and I talk to the person about their life. And things that I do these days in a reading, often when I tune in, I see somebody's life from conception to the completion of their existence. And when I say I see the conception, it's not like I'm seeing them being formed. I just know when it is, and the same with when they complete their life. I have a really good idea when it is, and I go forward and backward in time several times in everybody's reading, and I talk about where they are, where they're going to, what they can experience, what they will be experiencing, and I get quite detailed. And I spend a lot of time where you are right now, but I do go back and forth, and I look into the past, and I'll talk about different issues that that have happened to them, what they're going through. I measure their patterns, this cycle, and I measure the different cycles. And as I said, I often can see somebody's completing their life. Other techniques that I've used, and once again, I'm having this really amazing experience because I'm just this kind of comeback just a couple of years ago, and I started appearing on podcasts and then my own show. I started realizing that what I do, very few other people do, and in fact, I haven't met anybody that does. So when I'm say, for instance, you came to me for a reading. Let's just say, because it almost always happens, people are going through some difficult time, or, usually, people don't go to a psychic that often because they're happy and they just want to, they come to us because often they're in trouble, or they need help, or they're confused. So when I'm dealing with somebody in the midst of a crisis, I only ask 2 questions at the beginning of the reading. How old are you? What month is your next birthday? And then the rest I talk. And I ask people, please don't interrupt me. Even if you think I've made a mistake, don't interrupt me, because I'm going to be checking what I said, going back and forth, checking what I've said. And if I've made a mistake, I'll correct it myself. And if you interrupt me, you could interrupt the flow of the connection and maybe not get it back. So
is this like channeling, I guess?
I don't think so.
Somewhere?
It's just the way I do it.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like channeling. Like you're drawing from somewhere. You tap in. You tap into something some state.
I certainly
right?
do. I certainly do. My focus is helping the person in front of me. My purpose is doing it rather than labeling it. That's what my life has been about. Rather than having the fancy words, I just take care of what's in front of me. So what I do now, or one of my techniques, is I will say you're going through a crisis and you're 29 or 40. Let's say you're 40. What I'll do is I'll look into the future to say when you're 80 or 85. Then I'll look back through your eyes at 80 or 85 years old, and I'll describe to you today how you feel about the way you solved it when you're 80. And I'll come up with all the details of going on, and I'll show them how they solved it and how they survived it. And so 2 things that happen. One, I tell them, and they find out they're going to live for a fairly. Now, I wouldn't do it if they're not 80 years old. I wouldn't do that. But just using that concept, what they find out is that they got 80 more years, and most importantly, they get through what they've gone through. They're going through right now, and that's often the way I do it. And sometimes what I'll do is I'll look back in the past and I'll see something that had happened, and I will talk to them from how they feel it on the inside, and show them. Another technique I thought everybody did when I have bad news to give, and you have there is bad news, and while I don't like to give bad news, I'd rather like make everybody happy and have a beautiful life. And then I don't want to give bad news. Sometimes you do have to. And in a lot of my spiritual or inner beliefs, I believe that almost everything, when you can see something, when you know something's going to happen, then you can change it. So if you know an event is going to occur, you can prepare for it. If you don't know, and you just tell somebody, you're going to be happy and blah, 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 then you're doing them a disservice, because if you're not warning them or preparing them, then you're not doing your job right. So the way I do it is I talk about the extremely positive results of the shitty time they're going through right now. And I talk about the positive side, or I talk about the benefits of what's going to happen to them. And then I come back to the present and I just give them a little hint. Mm-hmm. And I change the subject and talk about other things. And then I come back and then give a bigger hint and a bigger hint. And then I refer to the really positive event that's going to be happening as a result of what we go through. Mm-hmm. And then finally, they slowly realize there's something going on. And then I identify it for them. And that way they don't panic. That way they'll see that it can be changed or be in control.
Yeah, you're giving them, you're leading them to hope too. So
Absolutely.
you acknowledge, yeah, and that's nice. There's bedside manner there.
So that's how I do it.
So
it's a skill. I challenge anybody to do that.
How do you identify? So you're pulling information, you don't know where it's coming from. Is there contact when you're working?
I touch them or anything? No.
Yeah, nothing.
No.
So how are you able? Well, I'm just saying, like if you touch, but if you touch them, then you might be able to draw in specifically their life. So how do you, when you're, I would say channeling, because you're tapping in to some sort of source to get this information from, how are you able to discern or be absolutely certain that the information you're reading is the person in front of you?
Because that's who I'm tuning into.
Okay. But are there markers that you see and feel to give you a hint that you're reading the right person?
If somebody says to me, "Oh, I saw you talking on a podcast last night. Who was it? Oh, that's Ryan Stacey." Well, how do you know? Well, because I could see him. That's why. That's how come I know you're Ryan. You know that you're Ryan Stacey. Well, where did I get that from? Am I channeling it? Well, I just know.
Because you were there.
Yeah, because I'm there. That's right.
So you go there. So you're going there. So you're mentally seeing it in real time. Wow.
I don't see it. The thoughts, the feeling, the ideas come to me.
Okay.
And when I'm doing a reading, I ask people not to interrupt me, because a lot of times what I'm saying isn't what I'm thinking. What I'm saying has already been processed, and what I'm thinking about is what I'm going to be saying next. So and over the years, other things. Now at this point, when I'm doing a reading, I am thinking about what I've said, what I'm about to say, what I have said previously. And then sometimes at the same time, I'll be thinking about what I'm going to do after the reading's over. And it's like having 4 TV screens on the wall, and each one playing a different channel, and they're going on at the same time. And I'm looking back and forth. And then if something comes up that in this moment, then they have my right there. So I'm in a semi altered state, but I'm consciously aware of what's happening.
Interesting. Okay, so we're gonna pause here.
Okay.
We're gonna take a commercial break. It's only a 5-minute break. So when we come back, I want to get into I want to talk about Stephanie and Thomas, those 2 doctors that you helped, because I'm very fascinated into that.
Amazing story.
So yeah, what was it too? Because it's that superbug. So I'm really curious to know how that's all connected. I want to dive into that. So thank you everyone for who is watching. Remember, you are listening to a podcast by the Experiencer Support Association, and we will be right back.
It's your business. It's your property. Your assets are worth protecting. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services specializes in patrolling and inspecting residential or commercial property against fire, theft, vandalism, terrorism, and illegal activity. People and buildings are monitored to prevent crime. Keep your property, your people, and your assets safe from threat. Our elite staff are dual licensed private investigators and security guards. Blacklight Investigative and Surveillance Services. Go to blacklightiss.com.
The same thing that draws aliens to our planet is the same thing that draws us to others. Exploration, curiosity, sustainability of life. That's why we go. It would make sense as to why they're visiting here.
Travis! Quit playing around, man. Get back here. Travis!
The last thing I remember was this numbing shock. Stunning sort of a feeling. Very powerful.
Get away from me!
I was just out of my mind with fear, just screaming the whole time.
It's been theorized that aliens prefer remote areas because they don't want to attract attention. Whatever it is that they're doing, they would want to do that in a less populated area. There are multiple accounts of the same thing from people from all over the world. People that do not know each other, do not live in the same cultures, and they're all looking up, they're all seeing things in the sky. So it would be naive of us to think that
Ryan is one of Canada's leading new UFO investigators. He conducts and oversees UFO investigations on a constant basis and was really taken by his research. He's compiled a tremendous amount of data regarding UFOs in Canada. And just as interesting, he really goes over how UFO investigations are done and what are some of the mistakes that people make when they submit evidence. Note for starters, don't edit your videos or photos before you send them. If you want to hear more follow-up conversation between Ryan and myself, you can go to richardolanmembers.com, where we have a candid conversation on ufology, the paranormal, and more. And remember, while we learn and grow and search for the truth, let's be good to each other.
Welcome to the Observation Deck, a state-of-the-art, one-of-a-kind virtual platform that takes video conferencing to the next level by using avatars to navigate a campus